Hey everyone, this is Kevin the Apptrepreneur, and remember how in yesterday's video I said we kind of had like a two-part story where Uber had like a major victory and a major defeat? We talked about Uber's defeat yesterday. Now we're going to talk about Uber's victory, which unfortunately for the drivers in California is pretty devastating if you were hoping that things like pay and employment status were going to change anytime soon. Now, of course, there was some disagreement. Like, we've actually talked about this on my podcast, and, you know, me, Cecily, and Mike, Drive Girl Drive and your driver, Mike, we were all hopeful, I believe, if I remember correctly, that this could potentially be a thing. We weren't sure if it was going to actually extend to Uber, but we hoped. Mark from Uber Hints was, of course, the one who said this isn't going to happen. They're going to appeal it. They're going to overturn it. And he definitely got some bragging rights about this. So he made a video a couple days ago, saying, I told you so. And yeah, Mark, you told us so. You told us so. And I admit that you definitely had a little bit more foresight. I was probably more of the hope that it would not turn out this way. But if you don't know what I'm talking about, the California courts have overturned some rulings. Uber drivers have definitely been classified as independent contractors. They are not considered employees. What's more, California has actually enforced that you can't sue them for this. You have to enter individual arbitration. And that's a huge, huge problem if you live in California and want to sue Uber for how you're being treated. So according to The Verge, and there's their little asshole logo. Sorry, Mom, it is. I mean, just look at that. I know I can't turn it, but look, just look at that, okay? I'm sorry. A 3-judge panel ruled in favor of Uber in a long-standing lawsuit that could have a profound impact on the future of ride-sharing and the gig economy. The 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals issued a decision Tuesday reversing the class certification order in the case of O'Connor versus Uber, in which Uber drivers argued that they should be categorized as employees rather than independent contractors. The judge nullified the decision on the ground that Uber's arbitration clause prohibits class action, which, by the way, this is probably the bigger issue that we should take away. I know we're going to end on a different note, but let's talk about arbitration for a second. Arbitration is that stupid thing that they make people sign that says, hey, if you have a problem with us, you don't sue us. You cannot sue us. You can't take us to court. You bring us to arbitration. We will hire a third-party consultant to investigate the claims. And if in the arbitration they decide that we are not wrong and you are wrong, you're footing the bill for this. And with that sort of thing, you can understand why most people would never, ever, ever sue any company with an arbitration clause. And every company in California has been putting it in there because they don't want to get sued. And it's been challenged quite a few times. I don't think it's done being challenged, where it's like, there's some questions like, yeah, but you probably shouldn't be putting in clauses that you can't sue people for things. Because that's why you sue people, for things that you don't expect to go wrong. Basically, when you do that, you're saying to the companies, yeah, we not only expect you to screw up, we're okay with it, and if there's a problem, we will enter an arbitration system that is definitely stacked against us and can cost us, not you. That doesn't work. And so the arbitration clause is what did this in. And that's why that needs to be challenged probably more than this. That being overturned, that you can't have arbitration in contracts, would be a much bigger win for everyone, not just drivers. But let's continue. We have, unfortunately, been long expecting, said Shannon Liz Riordan, an attorney representing Uber drivers in O'Connor. Yeah, her name has come up on this channel before and on many other channels. She's the one who represents a lot of drivers in class action lawsuits. I mean, she's known for two things. First of all, for representing these people, and also for settling for ridiculously low amounts than what they were originally asking for, and basically pocketing most of the money herself. So this is not the person I wanted to be representing us in the first place, but whatever, it's what we got. She cited the 9th Circuit's previous ruling against Uber drivers and the U.S. Supreme Court's decision in Lewis versus Epic Systems earlier this year in building up to this decision. Quote, those two previous rulings, she said in email, removed one of the remaining arguments for why Uber should not be able to use its arbitration clause to avoid certification of a class for its widespread labor violations. So for those of you who do not know what those cases are, look it up. We don't have time to talk about it here. Plus, I'm not a lawyer. I'm trying to explain this the best that I know how. But I personally prefer Leonard, the YouTube law professor, to explain this. But, you know, the Ninth Circuit ruling impacts a consolidated appeal of 11 pending cases that essentially boil down to the same issue. Should drivers be considered employees? If so, can they sue as part of a class action lawsuit? With today's ruling in favor of Uber, drivers will be considered contractors, and they won't, as is currently the case, receive numerous benefits. Quote, "We are pleased with the court's decision," a spokesperson said, a spokesperson for Uber, of course. I don't know why they didn't make that clear, but, you know, that smug, "We're pleased with the court's decision." You know, they're always pleased with the court's decision as long as it, you know, suits them. Of course, that's everyone, so I shouldn't get on their case of that. When prospective drivers sign up with Uber, they agree to waive their right to sue in favor of arbitration, a private quasi-legal process that generally favors corporations over individuals. Drivers can also opt of arbitration if they so choose. Opt out of. Okay, this article has a few spelling errors. I'm sorry, they just do. The main case, O'Connor, has been winding its way through the courts for over 5 years. It was almost settled in 2016 when Uber agreed to pay as much as $100 million to the roughly 385,000 drivers represented in O'Connor and one other case, so long as it could continue to classify them as freelancers. Now, here's the thing. Keep in mind, the attorney, even though this was a paltry sum for the drivers, it was, most of them would have received like $20. She was willing to accept this because she would have gotten about 30% of that. So she had a definite incentive to accept that. That's like $30 million. But the settlement was later rejected by a federal judge who argued that the amount was insufficient. Of course, now some of you are probably going to go back and say, but now that we can't sue anymore because this case, Uber does not need to settle for this case anymore. In fact, this case is pretty much dead in the water as a result of this hearing. So some drivers might say, well, maybe we should have gotten something as opposed to nothing. I disagree. It's like, you know what? We're getting like a knockdown. You still need to fight. I don't think you should accept paltry sums for your hard label. And if you're getting screwed, you should fight. And yeah, this is a big setback, but it can still be appealed. Continuing. With the loss of its class certification, drivers involved in the lawsuit are running out of options. Liz Reardon said she is considering an en banc appeal in which an appeals court agrees to rehear arguments. Quote, "In the meantime, because the Ninth Circuit reversed the district court's ruling on Uber's arbitration clause, we are urging all Uber drivers who want to pursue these misclassification claims to contact us immediately to sign up for individuals arbitration," she said. "Thousands of drivers have already signed up for individual arbitration. If Uber wants to resolve these disputes one by one, we are ready to do that one by one." But again, here's a problem with arbitration. You're no longer collectively paying her. The reason class action lawyers usually work pro bono is because they get 30% of the earnings. This is also why they typically settle for a lot less than what you would like, because their 30% is going to be a heck of a lot more than your 70% once it's divvied up between everyone. But let's say you want to do this. Now you got to hire her on a personal level, so you got to pay her out of your own pocket. Well, that's money you can't get back. So hopefully you win. But now it's an arbitration. So you got to go through this process, and if the arbitration comes back and it's against you, and it usually is against you because the corporations pay for the arbitration in general to keep them afloat, then you've got to pay the arbitration for their time. That's more money out of your pocket. So that's just not viable for a lot of people. Now, yes, this does tie Uber up in legal costs and stuff for an indefinite period of time, and Uber will still lose a little bit of money because of it. But the bottom line is, if you want them to hurt, you better hope that this arbitration thing gets overturned for everyone, because Uber's not the only one that exploits this. Everyone will, and this sets a bad precedent because it shows that if you work for anyone, whether you're employees or independent contractors, and there's an arbitration clause, you can't sue them, and you should be allowed to sue the companies if they are mistreating you. You know, I think back to all of this, and I look back at my older videos, and I remember when I called people fools for wanting to be employees and stuff like that. But you have to keep, and people say, well, you've definitely changed your mind. It's like, well, yeah, I changed my mind because things changed. 3 years ago, I was making $1.50 a mile and a lot of surge. And I didn't want that messed with. I never dreamed there'd be a day where Uber would cut the rates so much that it would no longer be worth it to drive. I could not picture a day where Uber would be taking 80% of my surge. I didn't picture a day where there would be so many drivers that combined with the low pay, I was making less than minimum wage. I could not have predicted that years ago, and yet here we are. So yes, my opinion on this definitely changed quite a bit, but maybe yours hasn't. Maybe you're still okay with this. I would love to know what your thoughts are on all of this. So comment below, like, favorite, share, subscribe. If you enjoy my videos, consider becoming a Patreon member. It's totally optional, of course, but even as little as $1 a month goes a long way in helping the channel run smoothly. As always, flame responsibly. Have a good one.